Yes, You Are It, Wisdom and Enlightenment. Written by Dr. M. Nadeem Ashraf. Narrated by Price Waldman. Dedication. To the best of creations, mankind. Quote, knowing others is wisdom. Knowing yourself is enlightenment. Unquote. Lao Tzu. Prologue. The tree, the child, and the wise man. Quote, it is easier to find men who will volunteer to die than to find those who are willing to endure pain with patience. Unquote. Julius Caesar. A man planted a tree on the day he was blessed with a son. He looked after both, keeping them out of harm's way to help them both grow. When the man finally grew old, the tree was tall and strong, able to stand against the wind and provide shelter from the sun and rains, all while giving ripe fruits. The old man would often talk to the tree, but no one else quite understood the friendship between the two. The son of the old man was unhappy with life and complained a lot to his father. His father would sit quietly and listen, but never offered solutions to his hardships. One day, when the son was complaining, his father took hold of his hand and led him to the tree in the backyard. He told his son that he looked after them both when they were young and made sure they grew up out of harm's way. But, over time, he realized that the wise old tree knew something most humans didn't. The son asked his father what it was the tree knew. The father told him that this tree was once so fragile that a strong wind could have uprooted it, so it needed care and protection. But slowly, over time, by facing the winds, rain, and heat of the sunshine, the tree became strong enough to stand alone, without protection, and even bear fruits for others. The son, still confused, said, I do not understand. The father replied, Son, you may have grown up physically like this tree, but there are still many things you need to face alone to learn to become a man. You must learn to face the very things I protected you from as a child. You must learn to not only withstand the winds, rain, hardship, and struggles, but also to be able to protect others and give fruits when you are needed most. The son asked how he could learn to withstand those things. His father simply replied that, just like the tree, by facing life's struggles and learning from them, he would grow stronger each day. The son kept quiet for a moment, and then asked, Is there an easier way? The father looked at his son, smiled, and said, No, but the alternative is to suffer with anxiety and depression and wait for death to end it all for you, if you think that is any easier. Before he turned and walked away. Chapter 1. Upside Down. Section 1. There is only one way to heaven. Quote, O Khusro, the river of love runs in strange directions. One who jumps into it drowns, and the one who drowns gets across. Unquote. Amir Khusro. There is only one way to heaven, and that is through hell. If we wish to reach heaven, we must cross the terrifying suspension bridge over the deep, dark valley of hell below. Many people believe they'll be safer if they simply don't attempt to cross the bridge, but everything we wish for is waiting on the other side. It is not only true for this life, but, if you believe, in the next as well. Of course, those who show courage and attempt to cross will feel the heat from the valley below, and some may not make it to the other side. But equally, those who attempt to cross, despite all their fears, are the only ones who get the chance to reach heaven. If you find yourself waiting on the safe side of the bridge, wrapped up in negative self-talk or absorbed by fear of what might go wrong, there are a couple of little secrets from the cheat sheet of life to help you take that first step. 1. If you don't face and fight whatever is holding you back and conquer your fear, I'm sure you've realized you are already living in hell. 2. It is never as bad as it appears. Take a few small steps, and you may find the bridge is shorter and easier to cross than it looks. Oh, and hell. It works like a goldsmith, bringing out the best character in anyone who dares to walk towards it. Good luck. Section 2. Challenges or divine gifts. Quote, "These pains you feel are messengers. Listen to them." Unquote. Rumi. We all know the concept of gravity. It was there long before Isaac Newton discovered it and before we became mindful of it. It pulls us towards the earth, and yet we are still able to walk against it. But what if gravity wasn't there? Interestingly, when astronauts land back on Earth from space, they are unable to walk. They have to be carried, and they've even reported that initially their tongues feel heavy, and they speak differently. Gradually, with the help from specialists, they can walk and talk normally again. This demonstrates the fine balance of all things. We develop as much strength as we need for the force or size of the challenge we are facing. In other words, we have the strength to walk because there is a gravitational force for us to walk against. If we take this force away, as in space, then we quickly lose that strength and come down to the level of a new equilibrium. Challenges come in different forms: physical, emotional, mental. But they all have one thing in common. They help us develop the strength needed to face them. Challenges of all kinds in life are a divine gift. Accept them and grow. Section 3. Step back or get closer. Quote, "Everything has beauty, but not everyone sees it." Unquote. Confucius. In an interesting study, researchers asked elderly people their biggest regrets in life. One of the most common was, "I wish I hadn't worked so hard." We all have our obsessions, and sometimes we try so hard that we forget to see the bigger picture. We forget that life is a multifaceted miracle, and by working ourselves to the bone, we forget to look up and take it all in. Lake Vostok is an amazing place. It's a subglacial lake under tons of ice that has existed for millions of years. It was discovered by a scientist who hypothesized a lake would be found underneath the thick snow and ice. He knew his theory would be laughed at and seen as ridiculous at that time, but he had the courage to stand up and go against his peers. Later, as science advanced and more technical instruments came into being, a scanner was placed on a plane and flown over the area. Now, it seemed the lake might be possible, but no one could be sure. Then, gradually, the human race conquered space, and from there it was easy to see the margins and prove the existence of the lake. It wasn't until the human race was capable of stepping as far back as possible that they were able to see the truth of the scientist's theory. When we're so focused on something, whether it's work, a struggle we're facing, or even a dream we have, we tend to get closer to it and consume ourselves by working incredibly hard on the finer details. By doing this, problems can be blown out of proportion, and dreams can seem vast and unreachable. Try the opposite. Take a step back. Increase the distance. Apply short-term detachment, or take advice from an outsider you trust. Simply put, let the margins come into view. Chapter 2. Change. Section 1. Sole desire is not enough. Quote, "The secret of getting things done is to act." Unquote. Dante Alighieri. An old story of Nasiruddin says he made a bet with his longtime friends that he was strong enough to miraculously survive a cold December night outside in his normal clothes. When he came back, they asked how he survived. He replied he spent the night reading a book by candlelight. He lost his bet because his friends told him he survived due to the heat of the candle. Days later, Nasiruddin cordially invited his friends to a private dinner. They arrived on time and waited to be served. After a while, when they started complaining due to the delay, he took them to the kitchen and showed them the dinner was being cooked by a candle. His friends made fun of him and told him that dinner could not be cooked with a candle. Nasiruddin smiled and told them that it was the same candle that miraculously saved him from the cold weather. His friends got the message. Our instinctive desire for needed change is just like cooking with a candle. Most of us never reach that boiling point or effective threshold to change. Many who do fail to hold on to that desire before the candle blows out, and they quickly fall back to old habits. Section 2. Old Habits. Quote, "If you always do what you've always done, you always get what you've always gotten." Unquote. Unknown. In villages in the southeastern part of the world, walkways are traditionally formed by repeatedly walking on certain areas of cultivated land. Most mountain tracks are the same. The same is also true for old habits. We repeat the habits over and over again, ingraining them into us like a well-trodden path. Trying to create an alternative path is difficult. It involves venturing off the path we are used to and starting all over again on unknown terrain. How quickly one can adequately establish a new path will be different for numerous people. The golden rule to recognize here is that little but consistent daily effort will achieve longer-lasting results than a brief burst of generous enthusiasm. Every day, walk the new path, and eventually it will be just as easy to walk as the old one. Section 3. Effective Threshold. Quote, "If we believe that tomorrow will be better, we can bear a hardship today." Unquote. Thich Nhat Hanh. A university professor once explained the idea of a threshold to his students by explaining what happens when smoking a substance. He explained that when you draw the first puff, nothing happens instantly. You don't feel anything. Then you take another, and still all seems wasted. Nothing comes to pass. After that, You gently draw another couple of puffs, and then suddenly it hits you, and you start walking among the planets. And that is called the threshold. Though you may not agree with the smoking analogy, this concept is true for any concerted effort in any specific direction. Only when a certain threshold is reasonably achieved, the practical results become visible. Those who stop early need to realize that one small step at a time is, nevertheless, a meaningful climb. Section 4. Act, act, act. Quote, "Courage isn't having the strength to go on. It is going on when you don't have strength." Unquote. Unknown. It was a routine but famous morning show. The anchorperson, Mr. M.H. Tarar, was an immensely respected traveler, brilliant writer, and TV celebrity. It was just another routine morning. First, he described the format of the show, and then started stirring a spoon in his cup of tea before taking a sip and putting the mug down and telling the viewers it wasn't quite right. He started stirring the spoon again, this time sending his viewers to watch the program while he continued doing it. He did the same for the next couple of scheduled programs before informing his viewers that he'd figured it out. It didn't matter how hard and for how long you stir the spoon. If you do not add sugar, the tea is not going to be sweetened. This was an elegant way of describing the need for action after constructive thinking, talking, or research. Act, act, act. Chapter 3. Me and Myself. Section 1. Life equals time. Quote, "Be happy for this moment. This moment is your life." Unquote. Omar Khayyam. What is life? There are a million different ways to answer this question, depending on how you look at it. Philosophers will answer this question differently than biologists. Poets will likely answer this more interestingly than anyone else. But whatever your standpoint, the basic fact is whatever we think and know about life all exists in time, the short time we get to spend on this earth. There is plenty of evidence for existence of life in one form or the other for millions of years, but there is no denying the fact that time, for any one of us as an individual, is limited. From the seemingly endless ocean of time, each of us has been awarded a tiny portion we get to spend here before things change. It's like a waterfall. The water always looks the same, but it is constantly changing in every moment. It keeps falling and keeps moving. Just like a waterfall, we should not be fooled by our cyclic mornings, evenings, days, and weeks. Each second, minute, hour, and day is never going to come back. That time has washed away to make way for the new. Each day we wake up is different and full of potential. Respect and value your time above all else. Section 2. Identity and Address. Quote, "I wish I could show you the astonishing light of your own being." Unquote. Hafiz Shirazi. Who are you? Where do you live? When we get asked these questions, we respond by giving our name and address. The truth is, these answers are overly simplistic, even though they are perfectly normal and acceptable in society. Let's start with, where do you live? Your address is not a part of who you are, even though we often see it that way. We think of a set address as where we live. But are you there now? Are you at that address all the time? You likely spend more time at work than your real address. Do you stop living when you leave your address? The real answer to the question, where do you live, is simple. We as individuals live in our anatomical bodies. Wherever your body is physically present is where you live. Yet, interestingly, most of us look after our houses, cars, desks, and gardens better than our individual and unique bodies. Likewise, each one of us is so much more than just a name. As an individual, your identity is made up of three major components: body, mind, and soul. And it's vitally important to look after all three. Section 3. Body. Exercise. Quote, "A healthy mind in a healthy body." Unquote. Proverb. Our physical body is just like any of our material belongings. It needs looking after to thrive. Yet, many of us feel exhausted and even depressed without really understanding why. Perhaps it's due to a stressful job, strained relationship, a physical illness, or any other legitimate hardship modern society has caused. But let's put things into context. A busy manager went to see his doctor after suffering with the usual problems of a modern busy lifestyle: stress, exhaustion, overheating, lack of zeal. The physician suggested he dedicate time to exercise every day to help regain his vitality. But the manager made excuses. He had an extremely busy and crucial job. He couldn't possibly fit exercise into his schedule. The physician listened, but had heard the same rationalization countless times. He smiled and said, "Well, the human resources department of your company is evidently doing a marvelous job." The manager was baffled and asked for clarification of the comment he made. The doctor replied, "The fact that your HR department was able to find you and give you the job, a person with more devotion to a job than his own health. If your health continues to decline, will your company show the same level of commitment to you? Or will you simply be replaced?" Whatever the challenges may be, there are few issues that can't be helped without looking after your health and well-being. Dedicate a small portion of time to proper exercise each day. After just a few short weeks, your body will thank you for it. Section 4. Mind. Read and reflect. Quote, "Employ your time in improving yourself by other men's writings, so that you shall gain easily what others have labored hard for." Unquote. Socrates. The mind is a complex concept, separate from our physical brain. Our thoughts, and in turn our actions, define our lives through the decisions we make. And, just like our bodies, our mind needs to be looked after and strengthened for us to grow and reach our full potential. Read a book, or listen to an audiobook before bedtime or while commuting every day to help strengthen your mind. Gain new knowledge to expand your thinking beyond the narrowness of your current beliefs. This enables us to make different and better decisions. By choosing to read a book you love or listen to an inspirational podcast, you are taking control and giving yourself permission to take time and reflect and fueling your mind with energy. It will help you take a more positive outlook and avoid unnecessary confrontations and delays. By expanding your mind, you'll see different points of view more clearly and the world around you will seem fresh and new. Reading books and giving books as gifts makes the world a better place. If you haven't read a book in a while, a good place to start is with the autobiographies of people who inspire you to fill you with creativity and passion. Section 5. Soul. Meditation. The soul is usually the most neglected of the three elements that make up who we are. Our soul is our unseen connection with the universe. The day our soul leaves our body, our physical body dies, but many believe the soul lives on. Practicing daily meditation helps strengthen our connection with the universe. By doing so, we open ourselves to new opportunities and beautiful things come into being. When a novice once asked what they could expect from meditation, an expert described it in the most powerful way, and I'll share it with you here. He said, when he was young, water was scarce in his small village. But one day, his village discovered a drilling company that would drill down into the earth and find fresh water deep below the surface. They hired the drilling company, who came and set up their equipment near the instructor's childhood home. As they began drilling, the large pipe began sucking out sand and stone in search of fresh water. Initially, lots of sand pumped through, and as time went on, small rocks started to come. But there was no water in sight. At one point, the drill hit a drain, and an unbearable smell swamped the village. Even so, the drill kept digging in search of water. Days went by, and eventually the drill hit a large rock which would be difficult to break. Many of the villagers wanted to stop the process, giving up on the hope of fresh water. But still, the drill continued to work its way through the hard rock until eventually magic happened. Fresh water bubbled up the pipe and gushed out like a fountain. The hard work had paid off, and the villagers finally had access to fresh, clean water. The expert explained this was exactly like meditation. At first, it may seem like you're not getting anything out of it, and the hard work seems pointless. It may even get harder before it gets easier. But if you stick with it, eventually the hard work pays off, and you'll see the incredible benefits daily practice of meditation offers. Section 6. Summary. The above three practices take less than an hour a day, but within a few short weeks, you'll start noticing the impact. The time spent on these three practices saves years of wasteful, negative energy by putting you on a winning course in this complex maze of life. To begin, start with 15 to 20 minutes of exercise in the morning. Just a swift-paced short walk is all you need. 15 to 20 minutes of bedtime or commute reading. Broaden the mental horizon by chasing a variety of subject matters. 15 to 20 minutes of meditation. You may find guided meditation easier to start with. Chapter 4. Peel back the layers. Section 1. Shared psychotic disorder. The environmental effect. Quote, "It is better to be alone than in bad company." Unquote. George Washington. Shared psychotic disorder is a rare form of mental illness in which a healthy person takes on the delusional characteristics of a person with a psychotic disorder such as schizophrenia. The healthy person usually has an emotional connection to the person suffering with the psychotic disorder and begins to believe in their delusions. They are usually the more passive individual in the relationship and also more easily influenced. Interestingly, once separated, the healthy person shows change and can overcome the shared delusions with therapeutic help. The one suffering with the mental illness shows no change in attitude and continues living with the delusions. The point is that just like when in water we get wet, we also get affected by people in our environment. We pick up the ideas and beliefs of those around us, even if they don't serve us or our situation. Think about some of the beliefs you currently hold about life, religion, money, education, etc. Did you form those beliefs alone? Or were they passed on to you by your parents, teachers, friends, and neighbors? Consciously, go through your core beliefs and see if they are serving you where you are now, or if it's time to let them go. If you find it difficult to dig down into your own beliefs, try speaking to your parents and grandparents about their views on life, education, money, and other important topics. You'll hear their views coming out and can evaluate if those beliefs are also ingrained in you. You may discover it's not just their beliefs that are passed down. We sometimes even copy the way things are said by the person. Have you ever caught yourself thinking, "I sounded just like my mother when I said that," or "That's exactly what my father would have said"? Try to say things differently. Try to do things differently. It feels odd at first, but then it becomes enjoyable. Have fun with it. Section 2. Confounding bias. Quote, "Any fool can know. The point is to understand." Unquote. Albert Einstein. To understand confounding bias, let's take an example of a scientific study. A research was carefully conducted to understand if coffee drinkers are more at risk of lung cancer than those who abstain from it. The study concluded that yes, the coffee drinkers had higher levels of lung cancer, so reported that coffee increases lung cancer risk. When a different researcher read the findings, he noticed that there didn't seem to be any real connection between coffee and lung cancer, and so decided to perform another study. This time, the researcher separated the coffee drinkers into two groups, those who smoke and those who do not. The new results showed it was actually smoking that increased risk of lung cancer, not drinking coffee. The fact that the first researcher didn't take the variable of smoking into account distorted the results. So how does this relate to us? Have you ever purchased a new car, TV, or a pair of shoes to make yourself feel happy? You might feel happy for a time, but slowly you find yourself slipping back into your old negative ways. Some of us tell ourselves that spending money on material possessions is the cure to unhappiness. But is it true, or a confounding bias? If underlying issues that are the real cause of unhappiness are not resolved, how can you ever feel truly happy? Remember, there is no paradox, just ignorance. Section 3. Conditioning. Quote, "Chain of habits are too light to be felt until they are too heavy to be broken." Unquote. Warren Buffett. Famous Russian physiologist Ivan Pavlov published experiments on classical conditioning more than a century ago. In his experiments, he conditioned dogs to salivate at the sound of a bell ringing by giving them food at the same time. Soon, Pavlov didn't even need to produce the food. The dogs would salivate at the sound of the ringing bell regardless. This concept of conditioning is also valid for us. Haven't we all got stimuli or anchors leading to conditioned thought and behavior patterns? Don't we all say things like, "I'm terrified of spiders because of that time when," or "I have to go for a smoke whenever I get stressed," or "I can't even look at seafood without getting sick because of that time I had an upset stomach"? The more important question is, can we break these patterns? If we can recognize a conditioned response in thinking or behavior, then the next step is also possible. The very fact that these connections are not innate, but developed, consciously or unconsciously, means they can be undone. To break an established connection of conditioning to the very core, you must recognize it as a conditioned response, and then actively avoid it for as long as possible, building up "the last time I did" as an asset. This way, you are actively taking control of your mind and establishing new connections of a creative skill to undo the conditioning where and when necessary. Let's take smoking when stressed as an example. Next time you feel stress building and find yourself reaching for a cigarette, intentionally stop, recognize the behavior as a conditioned response, and purposefully do something calming, such as deep breathing exercises for just 5 minutes instead. If, after that time, you still need a cigarette, have one knowing that you're beginning to take control of the habit instead of letting it condition your behavior. You'll be amazed at the difference being intentional about breaking conditioned habits can make. Section 4. Collective Consciousness. Quote, "The worst form of inequality is to try to make unequal things equal." Unquote. Aristotle. Collective consciousness was a term first used by a French scientist over 125 years ago. It is a sociological concept that refers to the shared beliefs and knowledge that are common to a social group or society. For example, devoted mothers can positively relate to their unique experiences as mothers beyond all other societal boundaries. This is also true in professional settings. Everyone in an office is usually well aware of the rules, acceptable practices, and ethical boundaries. These standards shape the beliefs and behaviors of everyone in a particular cohort. In simple terms, we see ourselves as part of different communities, and the collective beliefs of these groups shape who we are. We belong to different tribes throughout our lives: schools, colleges, neighborhoods, charities, clubs, cities, and even countries. In today's globalized world of social media and instant access in the palm of our hands, it's easier than ever to shift the collective consciousness of the masses through marketing and social influence. People want to look the part and fit in, so will immerse themselves in the collective consciousness of their online world to keep up with friends, celebrities, even complete strangers. A personal revelation of a medical student may help convey this point home. He said, "I am a qualified doctor now, but during my early academic years, I was going through an exam. The senior examiner taking my exam asked me if I was prepared on a particular theory, and, of course, I was comfortably prepared for the exam day to answer all the relevant questions. The examiner gently inquired if I was happy to take the point of view that the accepted theory was wrong, while he defended the theory was correct. This instantly threw me. I tried producing arguments against what was written in the books, but admittedly, I didn't get very far. I came up with a point or two, but the independent examiner easily rejected each point. I wasn't prepared for this left-field question because I was stuck in a collective consciousness. I traditionally believed the established theories produced professionally and repeated in the scholarly publications and valuable books were right, and no other point of view counted. But by gently forcing me to come at the prevailing theory from a conflicting point of thinking, I had to break away from that collective consciousness and open up my logical mind to other possibilities. It was problematic, of course, to put aside an entrenched belief system, but it aided me to become a better doctor in the end. What communities or tribes are you part of? Take a moment to think about how they are shaping your beliefs and behavior. Are these tribes helping to expand your mind, or are they keeping you stuck? Make an effort to put aside your collective consciousness and see the world from a different point of view. It's a simple way to expand your mind and become more accepting of those around you. Here is the easiest yet most profound exercise of all to find true balance. Ask yourself, what, if anything, I intuitively think I know is an elaborate lie? Chapter 5. Search for Balance. Section 1. How much good is good enough? Know your addictions. Quote, "Courage is knowing what not to fear." Unquote. Plato. There was once a young, up-and-coming athlete, one of the fittest people in her sport, and she was enthusiastically training for her next major triathlon. She noticed that when she was doing sprints while running, she was getting out of breath. Her fellow athletes noticed the same, so she went to ask her doctor to check why this was happening. Her doctor told her she had hit her physiological limit, and he feared she had become addicted to exercise. Can you be addicted to something good? Usually the word addiction is used to label the substances bad for our health: smoking, drinking, drugs, alcohol. But addictions come in many forms, and as the story of the runner shows, that sometimes they're masked as positives. What is your addiction? Work? Health? Charity? Finances? Your social life? An addiction is something which you're willing to sacrifice everything else in the pursuit of. Yes, nothing much can be achieved without commitment, but it is best to know the price beforehand and remember to commit to finding balance. No matter what your personal addiction, it's important to detach, when necessary, for your own well-being and for the loving relationships at stake. Section 2. Specialized narrowness of vision. Quote, "The rose and the thorn, and sorrow and gladness are all linked together." Unquote. Saadi Shirazi. Question. Do you prefer green or blue? Questions generate answers. The narrower the question, the narrower the answer. Which color do you prefer, green or blue? Blue. But for what? Walls? Clothes? Hair color? We are currently in an era of floods of information about every aspect of life. Thousands of papers are published every year in all specialized fields in multiple languages by different researchers across the globe. Researchers and scientists can no longer rely on their memory because new evidence is constantly being produced that moves the goalposts. Now, companies and media are taking advantage of this avalanche of information and claiming to give us facts when, at times, they are simply pushing agendas. Whatever your beliefs or approach on a topic, you will always find a critical counter-argument to challenge your view, evidence-based or not. The challenge we are currently facing is the basic lack of scrutiny when it comes to new evidence emerging. We've been conditioned by years of schooling and positive bias to do good, look the part, and fit in with society. This has created a society eager to accept the latest trends and theories without question. Many people don't know how to verify the quality of content they're reading, and even if they do, most have little time to bother fact-checking. The result is, we buy the word evidence without any real thought of checking facts to back it up. Companies and marketing experts will give us generalized, sweeping statements they claim to be evidence-based and cutting-edge content. But if we make the effort to question and scrutinize what they are saying, we may find a whole new story. And this applies to all areas of life. Think about your standpoint on any issue that is important to you. What is the color and size of your mental lens through which you are proudly seeing a very small spectrum of life and stubbornly insisting that it is fact? Have you made an effort to question your point of view and see it from different perspectives? Instead of focusing on your small corner, turn around, look back, and you may see this phenomenon called life is actually a little different than you thought. Decisions can only be made by getting the full picture first. It's best to start with open-ended questions first. Absorb the answers. Know all the available options. But don't stop there. Slowly start eliminating options by narrowing your questions and focus. Don't accept answers until you're sure you have all the available information. In life, always keep an image of a funnel in mind when learning something new. A tube that's wide at the top to let more in, but narrow at the bottom to only let the best through. Section 3. Strength or weakness. Quote, "Appear weak when you are strong, and strong when you are weak." Unquote. Sun Tzu. This could be a topic for a whole new book, and in my humble opinion, the best person to write that book would be ex-U.S. President Barack Obama. I'm not going to tell you the old cliché of seeing your weaknesses as strengths. I'm simply asking you to write down your strengths and weaknesses. Look at them with examples in your life of how they helped you and how they burdened you. Once you have done this for yourself, do the same exercise again, but this time, ask people around what they think your strengths and weaknesses are. You may find some differences between your perspective and the perspective of people around you. Let's take this a step further with an example. Let's say you've listed being outspoken as a strength of yours, and it ranks highly on your list of positive characteristics. You might find that those around you see this as a weakness and find it difficult to have discussions with you because of how outspoken you can be. Similarly, this can be true for ethical or moral values you hold. By adhering too tightly to your persona in your head, you may be missing out on opportunities to grow as a person and embrace new ways of thinking. I am not saying you should change yourself completely. But if you really wish to have a fulfilling, wider spectrum of life, challenge your values, both good and bad, and try to consciously switch them around to experience a new way of being. Yes, you are likely to return to your fundamental way of being eventually. We all do. But at least you will know the other side of the coin. Chapter 6. You and People. Section 1. Relationships. Quote, "Love one another, but make not a bond of love. Let it rather be a moving sea between the shores of your souls." Unquote. Khalil Gibran. There is only one rule. You are alone and absolutely responsible for all the relationships in your life. Relationships may appear to be a two-way street, but that is an illusion. As long as you keep this rule in mind, life becomes easier for yourself and others around you. When it comes to relationships, some of us have enemies, the extreme end of the spectrum. But are the lines so clearly drawn? Can enemies become friends? Your initial reaction may be to dismiss this idea. You may say something like, "I'll never be friends with that person. They hurt me in the past." But relationships are fluid and can always transform. It is your chosen attitude towards an individual and life in general, conscious or unconscious, that defines your friends, enemies, and all the other relationships in between. If we try and shift our energy and attitude towards life, we realize the level of control we have over our relationships. Once we embrace this idea and shift our energy in this way, old enemies can become friends, and those hard lines we once drew become blurred. Change the music, and people will begin to dance differently to get in sync with the tune. Yes, some may leave, but others may join. Because, believe it or not everyone is a fan of jazz. Section 2. Likability or originality. Quote, "Be yourself. Everyone else is already taken." Unquote. Oscar Wilde. We all crave positive feedback. It's part of being human. But if we are driven by positive feedback alone, life can quickly become bleak. Here is a fascinating story to illustrate this point. It is an old story, so let's start it traditionally. Once upon a time, there was a distinguished painter. More than anything, he wanted to create a masterpiece. So he worked hard creating a painting he was proud of and took it into town to get feedback from the townspeople. He left it propped up in the street with a pen and paper so people could write down what they thought of his painting and how he could improve it and turn it into a masterpiece. To his surprise, by the evening there were plenty of suggestions left on the paper. He was disheartened. He carefully brought his painting home and started pondering over the suggestions and how he could implement them in his painting. He soon became puzzled. If he took on board all of the suggestions given, his painting would be completely different. So, instead of changing his painting, he had an idea. The very next day, he went back into town and left the unchanged painting propped on the street. This time, he also left paints, brushes, and a new canvas. He wrote a note asking people to improve on his painting by creating a new, better version. This time, no one attempted to paint a better picture, since no one else in the town was a painter and didn't have the skill the man did. The moral of the story is, everyone will have opinions on what you're trying to achieve, and may even try to tell you how to do things better. But the only people you should listen to are the people who have walked the walk and know what they are talking about. But even after you've been given knowledgeable advice, the only person who can make your decisions is you. Look after your sacred painting. No thank you, no sorry, no explanation. Just acceptance and appreciation for both yourself and others. The decision is yours and yours alone. Section 3. Design your life. Quote, "I saw the angel in the marble and carved until I set him free." Unquote. Michelangelo. Avoid devoting too much of your life helping people alter theirs. Life is extremely transient. It is much better to appreciate the people who want to be in your life as they are and allow others to move on. Stay away from those who are constantly negative. They pull you down mentally. Stay away from those who are keen on making excuses. Those who have perfected the art of making excuses will never achieve greatness. Stay away from those who point out faults in everyone but themselves. They will remain stuck and never grow. Last but not least, stay away from those who try to embarrass you every chance they get. They will crush your self-esteem. Some of these people have no awareness of self. They enjoy being rude, hurtful, and uncalled for. If you have a person with any of the above traits in your life, run. Yes, run. They will always prevent you from living your best life. If you can't get away from a toxic person, if they are a family member or work colleague, for example, limit your exposure to the minimum possible. You don't need to prove anything to them. These people actually enjoy the value your misery gives to them, and they will always have something on you. Once you stop reacting, they will lose interest and move on. Sadi Shirazi, an outstanding scholar, once said, "There's no fun in winning a barking competition as a human. Rise above and focus on designing your life like an artist who is too busy creating a masterpiece." Section 4. Detachment. Quote, "First principle. Never to let one's self be beaten down by persons or by events." Unquote. Marie Curie. In our solar system, our planet revolves around the sun. The sun is at the center and brings light and life to all living things. Without it, life would cease to exist. Don't allow yourself to become part of someone else's solar system. When someone is going through a difficult time emotionally, mentally, or physically, it's tempting to allow ourselves to be pulled in by the gravitational power of their hardship. But you can help someone without being drawn into their universe. Focus on your world by being the source of light for those around you. Only allow people in who want to see you shine and benefit from your rays. Leave behind the people who want to extinguish your light and keep you in darkness. This is easier said than done, of course. We are often made to feel responsible for more than we should be. Listening, assessing, reflecting, accepting, and changing where needed are all healthy things to do. But learn to know your limits and when you're being drawn too far into someone else's negativity. Guilt is the most powerful weapon of mankind. It has the power to break a soul for a lifetime. When we let go of guilt, we have access to limitless energy as a gift from nature for finally removing the burden from our lives. But we must learn to detach from guilt and step into our power. Detach from anyone around you trying to make you feel guilty. Increase the distance between you and them. God is the only one who can really forgive, and He already has. Slowly increase your strength of detachment until you are free from the burden of others and able to bring your light and gifts to the world. Section 5. Alliances. Quote, "As iron sharpens iron, so a friend sharpens a friend." Unquote. King Solomon. Symbiotic relationships are well known to the students of biology. They are relationships based on mutual value and trust. After a meal, a crocodile will sit with its mouth open, and a bird, called an Egyptian glover, will pick out the meat stuck between the crocodile's teeth. The bird gets the food, and the crocodile gets his teeth cleaned. The crocodile could simply snap his mouth shut and have dessert, but he never does. The value in the alliance with the small bird is too great. Make alliances based on value and trust. If you're aiming to achieve success, no matter what success may look like for you, you need people with different skill sets to help you reach it. Some skill sets cost less in terms of money, but the person bringing that skill set is valuable as any other for a team to produce effective results. On a side note, always be clear about your role in any alliance, when you are the crocodile and also when you are the bird. This clarity helps save and strengthen relationships in the long run. Chapter 7. Price. Section 1. Ecosystem. Quote, "You only see what you know." Unquote. Goethe. Turtles are amazing creatures, magnificent yet humble. They live a long life, around 80 or more years. Some turtles who saw the last World War are still happily living in the deep blue sea. Turtles eat jellyfish as their staple food. Years ago, humans developed cheap plastic shopping bags for convenience stores. These non-degradable bags ended up in the sea, lasting for hundreds of years. Researchers have now discovered turtles mistake these bags for jellyfish and end up choking and suffocating on them. Those who manage to eat these bags become weak and die too. Their populations continue to suffer. We are all part of the same ecosystem, and we need to be more mindful of our impact. A seemingly insignificant act of buying a bag at a grocery store can have a significant effect down the line. A study in India and Pakistan found a critical decline in the number of vultures over a decade. They found this decrease correlated with an increase in the population of feral dogs. Over this period, dog bites increased exponentially in the region, which led to incremental human deaths from rabies. Vulture numbers were in steep decline due to the use of a particular medicine in larger-size animals. Vultures eating the carcass were indirectly getting the dose of medicine. Since they are much smaller creatures, it affected them much more significantly, leading to sickness and eventual death. As the number of vultures rapidly decreased, the numbers of feral dogs rose due to the lack of competition for food, meaning significantly more attacks on humans. What may seem like an insignificant act on our part can have a lasting domino effect on our ecosystem. Now more than ever, it's vital we become mindful and take steps to become more in tune with nature. Section 2. Other side of the coin. Quote, "The production of too many useful things results in too many useless people." Unquote. Karl Marx. There is always another side of the coin. A wise man was once told by a young man that times were extremely dark, and there were not many good people left in the world. The wise man told the young man that he should be the good man he was eagerly looking for. The young man replied that he was saturated with sins and unsuitable to be the one. To this, the wise man replied, "When it is so dark, the smallest light is enough to brighten up the surroundings." No matter how much bad the young man had done, he could always flip the coin and become the light in the dark. While you are reading this book, you are never going to get back the time spent reading it. Make the most of it by exploring each idea and making an effort to see both sides of the coin. Think about how each section applies to your life and what changes you are going to make to enhance your experience on this earth and live your best life. Section 3. When in doubt, ask. Quote, "It is wiser to find out than suppose." Unquote. Mark Twain. In a small town, there lived a poor girl. In her pursuit of a better life, she managed to save up and go to college. She was admired by many for her character and vision. In college, she made a wealthy friend who had everything one could ask for. Time passed, and it came the day when the poor girl was getting married. She asked her wealthy friend if she could borrow her diamond necklace she had worn in college for her wedding ceremony. Her friend agreed. She took the necklace and wore it proudly on her day of vows. The next day, she went to retrieve the necklace to return it to her friend, but it was nowhere to be found. She searched and searched, but it was gone. She was terrified to tell her friend she had lost her priceless necklace and didn't know what to do. Finally, she told her new husband what had happened, and they decided to go and purchase the same necklace to replace it and pay for it themselves. They managed to get another one from a jewelry shop and returned it to the friend, who didn't notice it wasn't the same necklace. They both promised to never tell the wealthy friend the truth about her lost necklace. To pay off the huge debt of the necklace, They sold their wedding gifts and canceled their dream honeymoon. They started working long hours at whatever jobs they could find to pay the loan. Life became miserable. Her husband finally decided that he had had enough and left. The girl carried on working 2 jobs to pay for the loan for the necklace, heartbroken and poorer than ever. Years passed by quickly. One day, she ran into her college friend while going to her second job. She broke down and told her the tragic story of the necklace. Her friend was shocked. She told the girl the necklace was fake, and she would never have worn real diamonds to college. But it was so beautifully made, and the girl was so wealthy, no one ever doubted it was fake. The poor girl cried and cried over the toll the fake necklace had taken on her life. The moral of the story? When in doubt, ask. Chapter 8. When the Going Gets Tough. Section 1. Domino Effect. Quote, "Courage isn't having the strength to go on. It is going on when you don't have strength." Unquote. Napoleon Bonaparte. Most of us are aware of the domino effect, a chain reaction characterized by a domino being pushed over, subsequently knocking over the entire row one by one. We often innocently apply the domino effect on our lives. We allow one small area of our lives to affect all other areas. Have you ever found yourself saying, "I lost my job, I'm useless, and my partner will leave me," or "I failed my exams, so I'll never have a happy life"? We use one small example to justify an onslaught of negative self-talk that tears down our entire lives. But when we treat our lives like a line of dominoes, we're looking at it all wrong. In fact, there is a different approach that will help us put everything into better perspective. Instead of imagining life like a row of dominoes where everything falls when one domino is pushed, imagine yourself in the center, with all the dominoes stood in a circle facing you. Each domino represents a different area of your life. If one falls, it falls alone, and all other dominoes are left standing. If your marriage breaks down and your relationship domino falls, you can look around you and see all your other dominoes standing strong: your friends, your health, your career, your education. Now when a domino falls, you can give your focus and energy to building a stronger, more stable domino to take its place, knowing your other dominoes are standing around you, protecting you. Section 2. Slow or fast, maybe, but steady wins the race. Quote, "I am a slow walker, but I never walk back." Unquote. Abraham Lincoln. Altitude sickness is a medical condition that arises due to rapid exposure to low levels of oxygen at high altitudes. It has its own signs and symptoms. In most milder cases, it's managed simply by bringing the affected person down to a lower altitude. Once the person is acclimatized at a lower altitude, they can resume the climb again. Another phenomenon, caisson disease, is faced by deep-sea divers who ascend too quickly. Though it is a painful condition, treatment simply involves putting the affected into a compression chamber and reducing the pressure slowly. We face resistance again and again on the path to success because nature has designed it this way to make sure we are becoming strong enough to face the next level. It also helps the environment prepare for the new and improved you. While human beings desire to rush things, Mother Nature has intricately designed these rules for our benefit. Hence, the old wisdom of slow and steady wins the race. We tend to rush into challenges and want the reward too quickly. But that isn't how the world was built. Quite the opposite, actually. Mother Nature knows that humans will always try to rush things, So this world was designed to slow things down a little. Fast or slow, steady always wins the race. Section 3. Stand up and protect. Quote, cowards die many times before their deaths. The valiant never taste of death but once. Unquote. William Shakespeare. Human beings are the best creatures that have ever lived on this earth. Think of some of the incredible things humans have done, from landing on the moon to finding cures for disease. We are an amazing species. I once went to a sea life center with my family where there was a big aquarium. We walked through a huge, breathtaking tunnel looking at all the beautiful and amazing creatures, including enormous sharks and humble turtles merrily sharing and contributing to the awesomeness of the surroundings. One of the inquisitive children asked why the sharks didn't just eat the other fish. The tour guide explained that they fed all the animals very well, so because none of them were ever hungry, there was no need to attack each other, and hence there was no bloodbath to witness. No unnecessary violence for the sake of violence. Amazing. Do you know what humans kill for? We kill for ideas. A characteristic unique to humans. We will kill for things no one else can see. Faith, beliefs, theories, opinions. Yes, we are the best species inhabiting planet Earth. Yet, unfortunately, we are also the worst, capable of killing more than any other species, even at distance and in astounding numbers. We are going to kill planet Earth, and because we have more developed forebrains, we will be able to justify killing this planet as well. Amazing, isn't it? We are able to justify wars to meet our own ends. We are happy to bomb congested cities as long as we can justify it with distorted logic or reason, however bizarre it may be. Killing is not our problem. Reason is. Now, how is all this relevant to you? If you have an idea, belief, faith, then it is your responsibility to protect it and protect yourself. People will be more than happy to kill you mentally, emotionally, and physically if they know you are able to think differently. This is what humans like to kill for the most. Diversity. You may say it's unfair. You may be the best of people living on this earth. You're going to stand up for freedom of speech, religious differences, peace. Unfortunately, not everyone agrees with you, and it's your job to protect yourself and your universe along with whatever it contains. On the other side of the coin, best learn to respect the notable differences in all fundamental domains of life as well. Life is infinitely in color. Section 4. Care, but with care. Quote, what we know is a drop. What we don't know is an ocean. Unquote. Isaac Newton. A charity worker was going door to door to collect donations and blankets for the homeless before the winter season came. He knew many people, especially young babies, would die because of the cold. He was driven and passionate about his cause. In the end, it took over his life, and it all became too much for him. He started suffering with anxiety that he would never be able to do enough good and help enough people. Seeing him suffer, those who loved him gave him different suggestions. Some admired him and told him to keep going. Some raised more money and collected more blankets to help his cause. But one old, wise woman had a conversation with him that helped him more than anyone else. The wise woman was able to see his addiction to doing good and charity work, and she told the young man he must stop and look after himself first. The man questioned how he could when there was so much suffering in the world. The wise woman listened, helping him peel back the layers inside him, one after the other. She then simply said, "Life on this earth has been forging on for millions of years. It's good that you're trying to be the best you can, but don't take it all so hard. Do the best you can, and then leave the rest to God. Have faith." 5. Have faith. Quote, "A mind all logic is like a knife all blade. It makes the hand bleed that uses it." Rabindranath Tagore. You may be the best scientist or mathematician this world has seen, but there are times when life removes all the variables and you are left with nothing but faith. This happens when we cannot see the full picture yet and can do nothing but take a leap of faith. Allow me to share with you a scientific example to help us see the bigger picture. The Sahara in Africa is the largest hot desert in the world. Some distance and an ocean away is the world's biggest rainforest, the Amazon. When we picture the two, they seem completely different. One looks like a challenge for life, and the other full of life. But life is actually the common factor between the two. Vigorous life in the Amazon depends on the barren Sahara Desert. It provides the minerals necessary for all forms of life to grow. All those sandstorms in the desert are carried across the ocean, even disseminating on the way for splendid life in the ocean to thrive, to the Amazon to help life flourish there. They seem so different and so disconnected, but we just have to see the bigger picture and things become clear. Without knowing the connection, it's difficult to see how the Amazon gets the minerals it needs, yet somehow it does. Until we can truly see that bigger picture, we must have faith. Chapter 9. Decision-Making. Section 1. Rules are rules. Quote, "People who have no hold over their process of thinking are likely to be ruined by liberty of thought." Unquote. Allama Iqbal. Life undoubtedly has its own rules, and it has no regard for the societal rules we create to help us govern ourselves. Societal rules are evolving and forever changing, but the rules of Allah, God, nature, are precisely fixed. So fixed that only when an exception occurs, we realize that someone else is running the show. For example, take a pen and stand up. Now, hold the pen out in front of you and let go. It falls to the ground. Now do the same with a spoon. Then try it with a wine glass. When it hits the ground, it's likely to shatter, but the rule we call gravity always applies. It doesn't matter what your beliefs are, whether you hold a religion or are an atheist, the rule of gravity always applies. No matter what beliefs you are passionate about, which religion you follow, the fundamental rules are the same for everyone on this earth. One can contemplate gentle rain, mighty earthquakes, and many other similar organic phenomena to broaden the raw canvas of thinking. Section 2. Fearlessness. Quote, "Avoiding danger is no safer in the long run than outright exposure. The fearful are caught as often as the bold." Unquote. Helen Keller. We all have 3 voices in our head when we're trying to achieve a goal. The first voice is the one that wants us to move forward, do things, explore, achieve. It's strongest when we are children and know no fear. This is the voice of positivity. The second is the voice of fear. This is a learned behavior we pick up over time and gradually becomes the strongest. Some call it the voice of reason, but it is best to label this the voice of caution. We should pay attention to it, but we should not allow this voice to paralyze us. We should take this voice into account, register what it's saying, acknowledge that it's trying to keep us safe, but we should also be able to overcome it. We need to drown out this hindbrain impulse response and allow our more advanced forebrain to overcome the paralysis and consciously move forward by taking the essential and meaningful steps. The third voice is something an individual usually discovers in moments of despair. It is the divine voice that guides us, the gut feeling, the intuition. We discover it gradually over the years, the hard way, by ignoring it and facing struggles and heartbreak we could have avoided. In recent years, more and more people are turning to meditation. Among many other remarkable benefits, meditation helps to make the divine voice clearer and stronger. Those who don't listen to the third voice and focus solely on the first two voices usually become slaves to their ego. Let me paint this picture for you. A hotel receptionist was having a conversation with a customer while organizing his booking on the computer. The conversation eventually turned to dream cars. The hotel receptionist mentioned that his dream was a particular sports vehicle. The customer happened to have that exact automobile and offered to let the receptionist take a drive in it. The receptionist suddenly found an excuse. He wished he could, but he shouldn't. Dissect the above, and it becomes clear to see what happened. The third voice spoke out and gave the receptionist the opportunity of a lifetime, but he chose to listen only to his voice of caution and missed out. Later in life, the receptionist will likely feel regret for ignoring his third voice. You might say you would have handled things differently, but is that the case? Write down the missed opportunities listening to the voice of caution has brought you. What would be different if you listened more to your divine voice? Here is a little secret. It's best to cultivate an attitude of being a reasonably unreasonable person, able to dream big and beautiful, comfortable in making uncomfortable decisions, making decisions and accepting uncertainty. It's the only way you'll truly tap into your divine voice and allow incredible opportunities to enter your life. Section 3. Roundabouts, Roads, and U-turns. Quote, "Think 100 times before you make a decision, but once that decision is taken, stand by it as one man." Unquote. Qaid-e-Azam, M.A. Jinnah. When we make a decision and start acting on it, it's like driving on a motorway. There aren't many U-turns. The road seems straight and simple to navigate. Some ideas are long roads to take, and some may need considerably more tedious planning to avoid getting off course. It's best to go around the roundabout more than once if you're not sure about the exit where necessary. We may even take advice from people who have driven the same road before, so we make the best choice from the viable options. Once a route is chosen, it's best to stick with it and show patience and perseverance. The road might look like it's going nowhere, but you'll reach your destination eventually if you resist the urge to turn back. Every key decision we make has the potential to shift our direction. If anyone lives in the Midlands, UK, and start driving north with the aim of going to Edinburgh, there are many historical towns, crowded cities, and scenic villages on the way, and choice of numerous routes to take. Whichever one decides to take will entirely change the experience of the journey. However, if you drive aimlessly with no direction, then you might find yourself heading south before the realization that you actually wanted to go north. The first challenge at a junction is not making a U-turn, but accepting that you've made a mistake and need to change your course if you truly want to reach the final destination or achieve your goal. The point here is that the journey of life will have many roads, roundabouts, and U-turns. You won't always stay on course, and you might lose your way. But inputting a little bit of extra time to make a workable plan and be intentional about the direction you're heading will save you valuable time and energy in the long run. Remember, if you do not know where you are going, you'll reach a land called nowhere. Section 4. Abu Jahl, father of ignorance. Quote, knowing others is wisdom. Knowing yourself is enlightenment. Unquote. Lao Tzu. There is a lot of emphasis these days on positive thinking and motivation. But in life, it's always best to know both sides of the coin. It's challenging to face up to the negatives and how not to do things. But acknowledging the bad ones along with the good is how we learn and grow. From a young age, we're taught about good and evil, right and wrong, with the use of villains in storybooks. One person who probably deserves a whole book on how not to do things is Abu Jahl. Abu Jahl, father of ignorance, was an influential and successful person in many ways. He was head of his clan and wise enough that people would come to him for advice. He was also strong, a fighter to be feared, and an admirable speaker. He moved the masses to his will and was influential enough to gather armies of tribes to go and fight on horseback in the hostile weather and rough terrains. Still, he ended up making disastrous decisions with fatal consequences for many, including himself. He would openly say he knew what was true, but because he saw his parents and grandparents do things a certain way, he is not going to change. Such was his rigid thought process and belief system, a flawed mindset. He feared change partly because he feared losing the respect and admiration of his people, peer pressure. When he was about to be killed, he made the most amazing request he could make in that situation. He urged that he should be killed with a sword swiped as low as possible across his neck. He gave the reason that when people saw his long neck, they would understand that he was a man of higher status. Probably a contemporary opinion of his times. Have you ever made decisions you knew were wrong based on fear, peer pressure, or similar reasons you keep hidden deep inside? We are all guilty of this at times. Abraham Lincoln had a wonderful habit of writing a response, but not returning it to the relevant person if, for any reason, a direct response was not in the best interest of the person or situation. All of these responses were discovered years later. In essence, at least be true to yourself. Chapter 10. Goals and Achievements. Section 1. The best time is now. Quote, many people die at 25 and aren't buried until they're 75. Unquote. Benjamin Franklin. So many people give the excuse, it's too late for that, when asked what they want to achieve in life. This is because they keep looking backwards at the years of life they've traveled so far. But let's attempt to look forward. We never know how much time we have on this earth. What if we have many good years to keep living? Is the best way to live to act as if your life is already at an end, or the opposite is better? The best time is now. Let's look at some of the reasons why later in life is the best time to accomplish goals. The most essential concept in this regard is speed. a concept first introduced by a noble master of guided meditation. In meditation, you start off slow, and it takes a long time to get over the first stage. But after that, progress happens quickly. This is because, in the beginning, meditation is new, and you don't know what you're doing. But the more you practice, and the more time you dedicate to it, the better and more skilled you become. Once you get through the initial stages, you start cruising at a much more swift pace that keeps increasing at every key stage. This fact is accurate for most things in life. There was a time when we had to learn letters, words, and then sentences. Later in life, reading and writing effortlessly is something we take for granted. But without that early foundation work, we'd never be able to pick up a book. Think of all you have achieved in life up to this point. Write a short autobiography of the places you've visited, the people you've met, the success you've accomplished, events that have transformed your life, jobs you've had. This activity will begin to bring all of your hidden assets into clear view. It will show you how your life experience has prepared you for this moment, to dedicate yourself to achieving worthwhile goals, no matter how out of reach they may seem. Once you know the goal you're aiming for, dedicate just a small amount of time every day to moving towards it. Just like with meditation, by giving a little time every day, soon your vitality and speed start accumulating, and the next steps become easy to take. Whatever you want to achieve, the mental, physical, and emotional journey you'll take consists of 100 steps. The first 10 and the last 10 are the most difficult. Respect those 20 steps the most. Section 2. You may already be there. Quote, "Valor is the heritage of those who strives for higher goals." Unquote. Ferdowsi. In an important interview, people were asked just one question. If you could do anything for a day, what would you like to do? The best answer was offered by a young girl. She expressed her wish to go into the vast entity of space, look at the stars and planets, and look back at our lovely home called Earth. This is a worthy exercise. Ask people around you the same question, whether they are distinguished colleagues, dear family members, or close friends. Observe the unique responses offered when not much explanation is given. Interestingly, most people will answer using their own set of limitations. It doesn't matter how much is available to us. We tend to dream within our self-built system of limited beliefs. When the above question is put forward to anyone, the answer is usually something already well within their reach. It may be because the persuasive voice of caution is too strong to allow them to dream big, but there is undoubtedly another reason as well. To fly, it is imperative to leave certain people and places behind. It also means forming new relationships with people operating at our new, higher level. When you have sufficiently learned to acclimatize to breathing at a lower level of oxygen and want to climb the mountain, metaphorically, some people will refuse to go with you, stuck in their own fear of change. The fact is, even the people we love the most are comfortable with the same level of life. It is not about good or bad, better or worse, poor or wealthy. It is simply that if one person chooses to operate at a different level, you should respect that and continue your journey regardless. There's no need to be scared and allow them to hold you back. As someone once said, not everyone who is part of your journey is part of your destiny. Accept it and keep moving forward in pursuit of meaning, happiness, and success. Section 3. Wrapping. Identify your goals clearly. Quote, "Everything we hear is an opinion, not a fact. Everything we see is a perspective, not the truth." Unquote. Marcus Aurelius. Be careful. Nature is very good at wrapping. It can disguise itself in the most playful way, but be deadly at the same time. Let's look at the example of the pitcher plant. It's a plant with a taste for meat and eats insects. But it's a plant with no legs. So how does it manage to hunt prey? Well, it lets its prey come to it. It sits patiently with its beautiful flowers, intoxicating scent, and pool of sweet, sticky liquid for thirsty insects to find. They climb in, never to get back out again. Why would insects walk to their own deaths? They are just insects, of course. They are happy to walk into the trap for the sweet reward. You might think humans would do better, but think about the lies you have fallen for in the past. Ask yourself, are politicians the only ones to blame, or are we happy to fall for what we want to believe? How many times have you bought a new product you've seen online because the marketing promises are just too good to miss, only to find the product doesn't do what it says it will? We walk into honey traps just as easily as the little insects walking into the pitcher plant. The easiest way to avoid these traps is to be crystal clear on your goals. Identify them clearly. Be sure to know which way you are heading and for what purpose. When you know your path, it's easy to sidestep the pitcher plant and avoid its allure. Section 4. Goals and Mountains. Quote, "After climbing a great hill, one only finds that there are many more hills to climb." Unquote. Nelson Mandela. The following is a metaphorical, broken, but thoughtful writing of a mountaineer about his experience of life. It is not poetry, but neither does it have to be. Drop your past. There is no past. Drop all the stories we like to feel. We achieve for feelings. What we do not know is bad feelings attach for longer. Do not wait to reach anywhere to be happy. Have a goal, but enjoy the journey. It takes a long time to get there, away from home to the mountain and then to its peak. If your goal is to enjoy when you stand on the top, then there is little oxygen and too much fog there. You will not be able to stay there for long. You will have to start another journey very soon. This time, it is from top to bottom. Enjoy the journey. Enjoy walking and sitting and the scenery. Obviously, do not sit for too long. When the body gets cold, then it is difficult to restart the journey. On the way up, keep your eyes on the goal. Most of the time, the top of the mountain is hidden in the clouds. You walk assuming it is there somewhere. You keep asking people who are on the way back, "How far? How far now?" People are going to tell you, "Just a little bit. Not far. You're almost there. Almost." And then, you are actually there. You look around. It's all fog. You take a photograph. You tell yourself you made it to the top. You will not be able to sit for long. You know people who stay there too long die there, or need rescue. Some are found, others are not, lost forever. When people ask, on the way up, from people coming down, "How far?" they never ask, "How?" No one ever asks how far you have come. No one ever asks how you made it to the point you were standing. No one ever asks how much you left behind. Never. When you are aiming for the top, then it is just you. You decided when you decided. No one on top is ever going to ask you how much is waiting for you down there. Those are not the people who start this journey. Even when you see someone with a dressing on their leg, you never ask, "How did this happen?" You respect them for continuing the journey. You do not want to break the soul of a person by asking why they choose to do this journey while they look fragile. Those people do not climb. They do not even start the journey. Never. The conversation is different. The people are different. The journey is different. They know the top. They enjoy the journey. Some will take a selfie on top. Some don't. Some do one mountain, come down. Keep telling the story of the same mountain, addicted to the selfie on top, but staying on a low level for the rest of life. Others plan another journey, not to stand on the top only. They are not addicted to the selfie on top and 5 minutes of fame. They enjoy the journey, humble and quiet, happy and content. Goals in life are the same. Walking towards them is the same. Achieving one is the same. Coming off it is the same. Staying down to tell stories of a glamorous past is the same. Planning another is the same. Epilogue. In essence, life is like driving through a thick layer of fog. Your visibility is reduced, so you move cautiously, but you resolutely keep on moving. Slowly but surely, always moving forward and forward. The more you keep moving, the clearer it becomes. You expect surprises to come, especially around the bends, but you continue to enjoy the journey through the beautiful, mystical fog. Mirror. A skillful master of martial art walked his young trainee to a mountain range in a lush forest. He prompted his trainee to observe a distant cave. Inside, there was a lioness with a cub. Instantly realizing she had company, she stood defiantly and started producing threatening noises. The trainee impulsively stepped back, but realized he was unable to, due to the firm hand of the brave master on his back. He probingly looked at the tranquil face of his seasoned master. "Scared?" sought the master. "Yes," student replied. "So is she," offered the noble master. This has been Yes, You Are It, Wisdom and Enlightenment, written by Dr. M. Nadeem Ashraf, narrated by Price Waldman. Copyright 2019 by Dr. M. Nadeem Ashraf. Production copyright by Dr. M. Nadeem Ashraf.